Hey, good morning to those of you out there on the West Coast. Good afternoon to those of you here on the East Coast with me. I'm excited to get started with today's training on finding opportunities, especially through agency forecasts, or excuse me, budgets. We have the annual budgets coming out for FY2025. Agencies have submitted them to Congress, and you can go in and look at a lot of them. These things are awesome. I'm going to cover down on a couple, and we'll take a look at them. But I do like to just start off by saying thanks to those who showing up early and on time with a quick tip for success. And let me just turn some of this stuff off here. Turn my scroll bars off. A quick tip for those of you showing up early and on time today is there's this great line, I think it's by Ralph Waldo Emerson, that says the best way to have a friend is to be a friend, or the best way to get a friend is to be a friend. And the reason I like that, and someday I should write it down so I actually have that locked in, but the reason I like that quote, and I just heard it today from a friend who I'll introduce you to later, but the reason I like that quote is it relates to the relationships we're trying to do. So the best time to have a relationship with somebody in the government is early on, and you need to be being a relationship to them. Or if you think about industry, right? The best way to have a good, strong relationship and get out of a relationship what you want is to put into a relationship what you want. Be the relationship, be the strategic partner you want. So we have all sorts of people who come into our training every single day, and you might want to build a relationship with them. And I was telling this person today that I've had a lot of people come into my life, it seems like on a daily basis, where a lot of people come in and will be friendly, it's nice, we'll talk, but it's really obvious to me they came in to try to get something and then they just moved on. There was no giving to me, not that I needed it, not that I was asking, but it's so easy to give to another, right? And if you're building a relationship, relationships are win-win, not I take and you give. And so as you're building a relationship, my tip for success for you as you move forward, and this is just a little thank you, is just remember the best way to have really strong relationships is to be a strong partner in a relationship that you have. Give is what Gary Vaynerchuk talks about, right? Just give. And if something comes back to you, it will. If you're clear in the chat about what you do, for example, Danny here is working with the Navy, NOAA, industrial supplies, right? I'll pay attention to that, and I might come back, right? So I'm giving to Danny. He might be able to get something out of this, obviously, and then I can pay attention to him. All right, so let's get rocking and rolling into today's training. Today's training is going to be a working session. I can already tell LinkedIn's having hiccups out there. So do me a favor in the chat. Just let me know that you're tracking on, especially on LinkedIn, because usually we have well over 200 people by now. And I've got a little hiccup there. So as I'm waiting to see a couple of replies, just to let me know that you're tracking. I did want to say that today's session is going to be different. If you've been to my other sessions, my other training sessions, they almost always have slides in there, and I'm guiding you through slides, pretty formal way of presenting. I always present something new every single day. Even if I speak on the same topic, I create new slides. I like keeping my thinking fresh on what I'm teaching you. Today, though, as we go into talking about looking at a budget and finding opportunities, I wanted you to experience with me what I experience. So I have a customer who's trying to go farther into the Army in the next 6 months. For the end of fiscal year 2024, they want to grow in there. And so one of the ways that we will be helping them go in there and figure out where to go and where are some of the opportunities they can pursue is to look at agency budgets. That's what I'm going to cover down on today. And so today's training, I'm going to go into those very budgets. They're hundreds of pages. And I'm going to show you how I start here and I kind of browse this way, or I might search for something with a Control F and search on maybe a keyword. And then when I get somewhere, how do I react to what I see? I want this to be a very real session so that you can see what I run into, how I run into successes, and where I run into a wall and I back up and I go around that wall. The more you can see that, the better. And if I do too much preparation where I jump exactly to certain pages, then you don't see it on how you would experience it. And that's what I want for you today. If you don't know who I am, my name is Neil McDonald. Welcome to my federal sales training, where I provide tips for success in the federal market. I spent 20 years in the federal market as a small business owner. Thanks, Nina and others. Appreciate it. 20 years in the federal market since 2018. I've been teaching people like you that government contracting is not a secret. It's just a process. Same as my opening lines. And the process goes A to Z. And when you follow A to Z, you will have repeatable, predictable results. And this is what I want for you. An example of a process is this ability to be looking 6 months plus out from a new fiscal year at an agency's budget. So for example, March is when all these agencies were submitting to Congress their request for the presidential budget, and that budget for FY2025 is going to be passed before the end of the fiscal year. I'm not sure it's going to be this fiscal year. It might be next fiscal year, but you can look at that. That should be part of your process, right? Every year you're looking at your target agency's budget and trying to really understand it. Okay, so that's enough about me. Again, I'm not using any slides today, so if you're just coming in a little bit later, I am going to be doing a deep dive into budgets and literally walking you through how I look at them. So it is completely a shoulder surfing way of doing training today. So let me just share my screen and we'll get off to the races. By the way, if you haven't gone to the GovCon Chamber, make sure you do that. Subscribe to our newsletter, which actually is right here on LinkedIn. If you're on YouTube or Twitter or Facebook, come over here to LinkedIn. That's where the community is. Join us all. And this is where federal buyers are as well. Okay, so I'm going to use the Army budget. And I saw Nina actually on today. Nina, this is this is for you. I'm looking at the budget and I want to go forward. So before I get to the budget, I just wanted to show you how I get there, right? I come into the Army and frankly, I just go into Google and I type Army budget, FY2025, and leads me back to this page, which is a perfect place. The reason this is great is because not only do I see the budget material, which we'll get to, you can see I've got all these tabs open for the budget material, but it also gives me so much more insight as I'm continuously learning about this customer, the Army, that I want tens of millions of dollars a year in revenue from. If I'm trying to get tens of millions of dollars in revenue over the course of years, then I should be willing to take the time to learn about them. And this is just one of many, many sites you can go to, but this is the one that talks about how they spend money, where they're spending it, et cetera. So come in here, browse it. It gives you a lot of jumping off points to look at stuff. Even things like I look in and as I come forward, I start seeing some of the tools I never even thought about. Like, here, as you come down, some of these, like here, headquarter cost reporting, well, that's CAC ID. But as you come down, like here, professional development, that's a fun one for me to see how's the government training themselves. I can learn about it, integrate it into how I talk. Anyways, really quick distraction on just making sure when you come into the Army's or your agency's target website where you can learn, take the time to browse around and take months, not hours, take months. Just throughout the year, you should be spending a little bit of time every week just learning something new about that target agency. Okay, I want to show you the tabs I have open. I'll watch my time. I've got 22 minutes. But the first place I go is this tab right here. It's called Budget Materials. And so in here, I can see the different budget options, and I'll come back and talk about them. And then these are the ones I am actually going to talk to you about. So here are two of them for the Army. I come into the reserves, and then I come into the National Guard. If you don't know this, the Army is made up of three components, if you will. There's the active Army, there's the reserve Army, and then there's the National Guard. And so I look at those, they all spend. And if there's places I can fit, I want to get in there. So let me come back here really quick. So in here, this is just all their budget material. And recently I rolled out these things, which are, budget overview. Actually, let me see if I can open these easily. But these are highlights, right? But then you get into the base budget and you really start seeing how many documents out there around it. I just picked these high-level ones around operation and maintenance, right? So these 6 are the ones that I opened up and said, that's what I'm exploring today. Literally, I probably could have just picked one and spent the 30 minutes on that. But as I come down, right, if I'm in construction, I would click on this and say, well, let me see what's going on. And this allows me to see what the Army is spending on construction around there and who's doing it. And so you can see the rest of this. I have a person who reached out. I was talking to them yesterday, and a big part of their business, probably 60%, is on the research and development. And I had been guiding them saying, well, you really want to look at the Army because they do a lot of spending around this world. But I knew that conceptually, right? Now I can come into the budget and see it for sure. And it just takes time to open these up to begin to figure out where you fit. You do these several years in a row, you start getting good at knowing where to go, right? There's a lot of people probably in our community who are very good at going into the budget. So this one here, just showing you, let me go up to the top because I was already there. But this is just a quick 27-page slide deck that just is a briefing about the budget, right? You can see the spending, et cetera. This is some of the stuff I like. Really quickly, I can see that military construction, that's my space, let's say, 41% increase. That's huge. So anyways, this briefing at a glance you can look at. I also shared a document like this on my LinkedIn profile if you're tracking. But this is just another way of looking at that briefing deck. It's the highlights, and it's 30 pages in there, and so you can go through. Those are nice ways to see the high level. That's what people look at when they just want to superficially talk about things. But if you actually want to look at how the Army or any agency is spending money, you really need to go into their documents. Obviously, you can look at how they did spend money by different means. But in here, I'm going to be looking at the Army and saying, well, let me see what's out there. So again, what I'll be doing right now is just showing you literally how I would do it this afternoon if I'm trying to go through this and find and pull out information. Finding opportunities, by the way, is not just about finding the title of something and it's coming out in this RFP, but it's seeing a trend where you go, well, there's an opportunity. Let me get in there and see if I can do something. So an example is, imagine if you get in somewhere and you notice that they dropped the number of people who work for that office. That's an opportunity to me if I support that type of office, because I can go in and say, hey, I noticed you guys have a decrease in the number of FTEs next year, government people who are working. Is that because you guys are having less of a workload? And the answer is always no, right? No, it's horrible. They're decreasing the number of people we have, but making us do the same or more, which is everybody's job, right? We all have to do the same or more work. Well, now it gives me a chance to talk to them about their problems and then introduce how, hey, we can introduce efficiencies in there. So by coming to a document like this, I'm able to identify things. So I'm going to try to go back and forth between these different documents occasionally, but let me just start with a control F, because that's always fun, right? If I just say I'm looking, well, here you go. So I'm going to let this thing search for 1 second. I'm just going to do I wonder if it'll let me do a cyber search on all of them. So I've never tried to search on 2 different documents. I might stop that 1 second. Look at that. I get live and I get nervous. Hold on 1 second. I screwed something up. Let me open up Army, regular, Army. I think I closed one of them. Which one did I close? I closed the second one. Regular Army, I think. I don't know. We'll figure it out in a second. So if I come back here, let me get rid of that guy because I don't need it. Let me get rid of this guy because I don't need it. And let's come back here. And let me shape that. All right, I'm back. So I just did a search and I let it run. If you can't see, there's 299, 300 cybers in here, right? And I don't know if you could see this. Maybe somebody can text me and tell me to make it bigger if you want. But the idea is I'm looking for cybersecurity because that's a huge area that I'm supporting. And so cyber activities, I could pop down and just start tabbing through. And this is the first place I want to kind of come, right? Is when I come in, part of what I'm looking for is to learn about what they're doing. And so here I can see that the operating force budget activity is crucial. This budget activity, and every time I hit somewhere, they say something a little similar to this. But the budget activity guarantees our ability to do something, consisting of 5 activity groups. And it lays out these activity groups, but cyber activity is one of them. So if I scroll down here, I'm able to see that cyber activity provides vital capabilities to secure the freedom. This all makes sense. I see that. So I'm going to kind of keep popping for a second. And so now I start coming down and without going too far into the budget, if you watch this header section, it keeps changing from major sections to programs, et cetera. But at the moment, one of the flags for me is there's a decrease in FY2025 for the commands for which the Army is CCSA, which I forgot what that is, but cybersecurity something. So these adjustments are tied to a one-time technology buy down. They probably stood something up. This is fine. It begins to help me understand. But the other thing is right here, look at this where it says the FY2025 budget decreases for cyberspace operation and cybersecurity due to the reduced requirement associated with the functions assumed by U.S. Cyber Command. And so I look at this and go, oh, things that might have been in different other cyber commands, smaller commands or something, or subordinate commands to non-U.S. Cyber Command, but now it's going to this major cyber command. I already know about the cyber command, but what I can see is more of the decentralized budget on cyber is being rolled up into the centralized approach to cyber. And so let me go down a couple other clicks here. So here, it just, and this is one more thing, just so I can show it. This is another flag for me. Right away, it's telling me an opportunity. It's saying information technology services, right? So there's service-wide communication. What it's saying is they're transferring things from the Reserve and National Guard, but they're consolidating IT resources under single providers up under the Army Cyber Command. And as I look through this, I will see more and more of that. And so that's a really important thing for me to see. Let me come back to that really quick. Let me come up here. Okay, so that's just looking at a keyword. I could come over here and do the same thing. By the way, one thing I didn't point out is, look at this. There's 25 pages as kind of a high level way of looking at it. And then 282 pages. Here's 225 pages. And the regular Army one is 781, right? Its smaller document is only 180 pages. There are a lot of pages you're going to have to go through. But if I come back here and try to do this same search for cyber, now I can look through and see this same area, this sub-activity groups in here. But something else I notice is like SAG 431. You see how it says administration? Let me zoom in really quick and come down. No, not that direction. So right here, you see administration. Let me get rid of cyber for 1 second. And let's just type in administration. Right? I saw administration because I was searching on cyber, but then I was browsing and looking at this. And so if I come through, you see it's there. If I come over to the regular Army, let me come down here, same thing. So SAG 431, I say SAG 431 like I'm some sort of expert on SAG. I'm not, right? I can go through these documents, I move forward, but I don't want to pretend like I'm some sort of budget expert. But I can come in and look, there's administration here, there's logistics support. And so I'm trying to explore this. And let's say I go down into the administration side and I'm trying to figure out what's going on. The first thing I want to do, let me zoom in so you can read this, right, is I want to jump to this special group so that I can understand in this sub-activity group what's going on. What are they saying that can help me? And so I quickly am reading across this. This is telling me who's in the administration. Here, funding provides for the overall operation. So this is something I'm looking for. Civilian pay, don't care. That's them getting a paycheck. Training, yeah, that's us. Supplies, if you're selling office supplies, things like that. Equipment, more training apparently. And then contracts, so acquisition support, et cetera, at the headquarters Department of Army level. And so here it talks about executing all the functions, blah, blah, blah. In general, it supports including these activities. And I could start looking in, right? So I'm getting an understanding of what's in there. As I start coming down, one of the things that I thought was interesting, and I would have to explore this, is this idea of where I'm looking at the force structure and they're talking about headquartered Department of Army. For some reason, they got U.S. Army Medical Command in here. Now, some absolute Army expert might know what that means, but I don't know why these guys would be in here when I'm looking at a headquarter level of something. So I'll track on that and see what's going on. But if I just keep browsing for a second, not on searching, if I start scrolling down, I can start looking at the budget. And the budget, what I'm looking for in here is I'm looking for the words they use, right? And so let me scroll down. I'll tell you when I stop at something that pops out to me. I don't care about the overseas. I don't care about these kind of things at the moment because they're all specialty. I can't tell you why I don't on everything, but I'd rather tell you when I see something that makes me want to stop, right? So if I start coming in here, an example is here's looks like 475 million, I'm assuming. I don't see the legend, but I'm assuming that's 475 million. But here, suicide prevention, for example. There's all sorts of companies out there that are supporting these challenges that are out there. And so I can look in and I can see what's going on, right? 13 FTEs, the type of services they're supporting. But this activity, everything you see in this paragraph is related to a broader priority the Army has of suicide awareness prevention. I'm assuming suicide prevention through awareness, and all the activities that go into that. Well, if that's my world, I can get in there. And then transfer out, I don't really care too much about that at the moment. I'm looking for other ones that pop. So just coming down, this is just legislation stuff, blah, blah, blah. This might take a little too long for me. So here I'm looking at construction. It's just how they're spending, but somewhere, there we go. That's where I wanted to get to. So somewhere it starts going into the explaining about what's going in there. So here I'm looking at service-wide communications, that sub-activity group. This is a great place for me to pause 1 second and say, look, when you're looking at these budgets, you want to begin to understand, where do you fit in the sub-activity group, these SAGs? If you understand where you fit, you begin to get better, or quicker at the very least, and then better at going to the right place. Maybe your world is logistics. Here's facility sustainment and modernization. I have companies that are in our community that some of them do brand new construction, but others do this work that is more maintenance and making sure the buildings are going well, et cetera. So here I can come through and see what's going on. But my point of saying this is, you want to begin to understand, what's my sub-activity group? Certainly in the Army, right? And you've got to look at every one of your target agencies and see what they do. So here I'm coming in and I'm looking at some stuff, and I'm trying to see what captures my eye. There are some stuff at the top level. It's explaining what service-wide communication is. But right here, this caught my eye right away, because I know there's multiple people in our community, in my network, who do acquisition support. They support the government's procurement lifecycle, et cetera. So I can start looking in here and beginning to, what is this showing me? So here, providing resources for support of the defense acquisition workforce. Actually, that Workforce Improvement Act, I might go look at it just so I'm familiar if I'm not. Here it's saying the major automation programs. That's something I might want to go dig into, right? And I'd be curious if I can get lucky in this live training, that if I can type in acquisition automation, what would I find? So let's just go ahead and give that a shot, because those programs I would want to know about. Let me just hit enter and see what we get. It's starting to count, right? So I'm just going to jump ahead on some of these. So here's Army Acquisition Executive Support. I can begin to go in and look at what they have. Here, the cool part about it is, you see these highlights. They're talking about Army Futures Command cross-functional teams, the Acquisition Support Center. If I wasn't aware of the Acquisition Support Center, there's kind of a opportunity for me to go in, learn about them, meet some people, hear about their opportunities, right? I don't just go to a SAM or a GovWin or wherever and just look through a database and wait till I find an opportunity. I go in and I build relationships. That's why I'm doing this, and that's what I'm looking for. Here's a PEO. These are huge across, especially DoD, right? As these program executive offices, they run many different projects or programs. And so this is one for Army acquisitions. I would want to go track on that, see what's going on. Let me just go see another ones that pop up. So here's just Acquisition Support Center. Here's excellent support, whatever, executive support. What I'm looking for is that one where, and that's just acquisition of facilities. Let me jump through really quick and see what I find. So this is the part I think where I was at before when I did the search. What I want is, like, even here, there's an Assistant Secretary of Army for Acquisition, Logistics, and Technology. Like, I know about them because I share a lot of information, but if I didn't, I would pursue it more. What I'm looking for are those, how do I find the names of those acquisition programs? And I'm doing this live, so it's always again, a fun thing. Coming in here. So here, okay, these are different missions that are going on. Here's the workforce development. Here's development account, workforce fund. That's all standard stuff. Come on, show me. I can't find my thing at the moment, which is fine. If I can't find it, I can look somewhere else later. I'm just clicking through really quick. Let me go up once because I went too fast. Okay, so I didn't find it. Oh, well. But what, if you keep in mind, it was acquisition programs. And so I would want to go through and try to figure out what are those acquisition programs, because if I support acquisition services, I want to go in there and do that. Let me go over to the reserves for a second and just show you, again, kind of a fresh one and browsing a little bit, coming down. Another way I absolutely do this, and actually what I'm about to show you is the very first way. I actually don't keyword search initially. initially I want to know what's in this 255 pages. And so I start browsing, right? I come down a page or two, I stop here and I really begin to consume or absorb what I'm seeing within the table of contents. So as I'm looking here, here's a summary of funding and increases and decreases, right? If I had this, which I do apparently, let me see if I can highlight this. Maybe that's not this guy. Maybe it's this guy. No, sorry about that. Stick with me. It's my first time using this. Oh, I know what the problem is. It's all hyperlinked. So hey, look at that. That's what I was trying to do. I think you get my point. Right here where it says summary of funding increases and decreases. I'm trying to highlight that, but in real time, it's embarrassing. But that's really important to me, right? If last year we were always going after this particular component in the Army, but now I'm looking going, wow, they have a decrease in funding, but there's increases over here. Well, I want to begin to understand that. And that's really important. I could do the same thing, like I mentioned earlier, related to the number of FTEs, the people that they have working there. So then as I come down, can I use my mouse? Good. Okay, so then as I'm coming down and I'm browsing through these and I'm trying to figure it out. If I was able to mark this up the way I want without going crazy on it, I would also redline. So I use yellow and red. I want to redline out the sections I could care less about, right? And so if I get theater level assets, I don't care because that almost always is OCONUS. But if I look at some of these other ones like aviation assets, I might review it quickly once and then go, oh, it literally is machine parts and airplanes or whatever related to aviation. It's nothing to do with professional services like I might do, and I'll just cross it out. But force readiness operation support, I do professional services. I would highlight that yellow and dive into it. And so this whole kind of idea coming through, base operation support, I would look in there and go, is this base operation just for the facility side of the base, or is it the professional services of base operations as well? If you support military installations around the country, you might look at base operations and see how it's funded, what's going on. There's like 12 pages in there that are a start to help you. Then you can actually go to the base operation website where they have other documents that are hundreds of pages on their own that lay into how they're spending money. Modernization is a huge thing, right? So looking in there, supply chain's another big one I would be looking for in here, right? If I do supply chain, I'm just curious if it's in here, but supply chain, there it is, supply chain. I don't know how many it's going to have at the moment, but I can start coming through and explore supply chain. I didn't see anything. I was looking for something up above, like in the table of contents. There's not. So I would just be coming down in here. So anyways, as you look at these budgets, approach them in a couple of different ways, right? First way is to browse this table of contents and begin to understand it. Second way, figure out what your SAG is, that subcategory group right here. Figure out which one is a best fit for you. I saw one in here that was logistics, right? That might be a fit. This ability to go in helps you start digesting the budget. When I talk about finding opportunities within the budget, you want to make sure you understand that it's not about finding opportunities that are listed out with a title, right? You can go to the long range acquisition forecast. You can go to SAM or DIB or GovWin or whatever. What I'm talking about is the next level sales and relationship with your customer. If you're trying to build 5, 10, or $100 million book of business at an agency, especially like the Army, then take the time to go through these documents and begin to understand them. If you've never done it before, your head's going to hurt a little bit in the beginning. But that's how everything is when we start. But I'm telling you, if you start going through, you will start making sense of things. You will see something you sell or problems you can solve, and then you will begin to understand the offices that are connected to that. And when you go in and start exploring those offices and try to learn more, you'll start seeing org charts and other things as well. And so dig into it. There's a lot of good information. If you have questions about budgets, how to get started, let me know. You can go into my LinkedIn. Actually, well, I don't have LinkedIn open, but you can go into my LinkedIn newsletter. And in the newsletter, I've got one of the articles recently has all the budgets. So links to all the budgets just to speed it up so that you can get to it right away. So as you go forward, I want you to just keep that in mind, right? Is that these budgets will help you identify opportunities. And these are in particular really good conversation starters when you go in, because you've got end of the year spending going on. you want to start looking at those activities that are going to be coming out next year as well. All right, so I'm going to wrap up. Again, ping me if you got any questions on the budget. Make sure you sign up for our newsletter. As you move forward, evaluating the budget, as you move forward through your day, just remember, government contracting, it is not a secret. It's just a process. I will see you in the next training.